Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Warcraft video. Yeah, this is the big one. It is all about to kick off, and I actually have a lot of really good, positive things to relay to you. And well, because of that, I'm going to begin this video with a quote from Ian Hazzikostas, the game director of World of Warcraft. It is something that he just posted. One of our main lessons learned from the past expansions is the vital importance of carving out a large window in our alpha and beta for feedback and iteration of these endgame systems. Now, you'll understand the context of that quote in a little bit, but I thought it was just so key to start off the video by reading that quote to you. And the reason why is that the core problem of Battle for Azeroth is basically they went live with what really was a very early version of Azerite and all that stuff that had not been iterated upon that much on the, in the test for Battle for Azeroth. And really, it's that bad quality of the alpha and beta of BFA in terms of just the quality of the actual testing that happened and the iteration. That is what doomed the BFA expansion. Yet, as you're going to see in this video, covering Blizzard basically announcing their plan for the alpha and beta, I think what you're going to see is they seem to have understood. And there's a lot of key things that I have said in the past are things that I'm looking for as personal just signals of things moving in a better direction. And well, yeah, they're actually doing a few of those things. So with that, let's properly get into the video. So what the hell has happened? Well, generally speaking, and you'll know this if you watch the most recent WoW news, we've all been on Alpha Watch because of a bunch of just back-end BNet stuff that people saw. Well, Blizzard have now announced that Alpha is going to begin testing. It's the closed Alpha, so a lot smaller. That is going to begin testing in a few days, towards the end of this week. That does mean that, yes, in a few days, some of us will be able to play this next expansion. I don't know if I'll be in that group or not. Of course, I hope that I am, and if I am, I'm going to use that position to get as much content out to you and to get as much testing done as is possible, and to hopefully, help all of you just see what you think about the expansions feature, so we can all let Blizzard know. My goal really is to help them as much as is possible. There is nothing that I want more than for World of Warcraft to be on the top of its game, doing really, really well. So that's really good. Now, overall, in terms of what I think you should expect, and this is before I go into some of the more interesting juicy bits from Ian's post, what you should expect, though, is for data mining to begin probably between today and tomorrow. So there will be a lot of content dripping out from that, and then the gameplay will begin later on in the week. And then, over time, what Blizzard are going to be doing is opening up more and more of the content, and then eventually it will hit beta, and that's where the testing will go a little bit wider. Now, with all of that said, let's actually just hop straight into things. The first topic is the content rollout for this test. And again, this is very good news. What they're going to do is slowly roll things out on a per zone, per dungeon basis. So the first thing that we're going to be getting is the zone of Bastion and then one dungeon. And later on in this month, April, we're going to get Revendreth and also a look at Torghast, which is pretty darn exciting. Now that is really good news. That means that things are going to be a bit more slow and a bit more targeted. And that is the thing that really matters. And once Blizzard have got all of the content, the core content of the expansion out there, that's when things will flip from alpha over to beta. But what really matters, and it's so important that this point gets across because this really does show that Blizzard are going to be doing something different from what they did in BFA. They've talked about doing targeted testing, and they've said with template characters. Now, if you've not done an alpha test for World of Warcraft expansion, let me explain this, because I've been in these alphas for quite some time, every single one since Warlords of Draenor, which is really when I started the channel. Now, in Battle for Azeroth, what would happen is you'd level up your characters, right, on the alpha and the beta. But that was basically it. There were max level pre-made characters, but they were only on a PvP realm. And in that PvP realm, you were shackled within like 100-yard radius of the PvP area of Borealis or Zuldazar. And that really sucked, because that meant that you could not properly test those classes, test the Azerite gear or the customization. There weren't even target dummies for 120 characters to play on that realm. So with no pre-mades, endgame testing was basically not possible. And that really did hurt the quality of the testing done in the BFA alpha through beta cycle. Whereas what Blizzard have just said here is they're going to be doing a slow rollout of content, okay? But they've also said that where it makes sense, they're going to be doing targeted testing with template characters. Now, if you combine that with what Blizzard, or with what Ian actually says at the end of this post about them understanding that endgame testing in alpha and beta is the most important thing and the lesson they've learned from past expansions. You put those two things together, that does basically mean max level pre-mades in Shadowlands. And that, I believe, is the key to this being a good expansion, because that is what was missing from Battle for Azeroth, and that is what they actually did pretty darn well in Legion. So this is truly great news. There's a reason why I'm actually recording this video instead of just, seeing the post and not doing anything. And it's because of these tidbits, the things that actually matter that they've said, that do give me a lot of hope. Actually, this is them literally saying that they did things wrong in the past and they're trying to do better now. So whenever they try to make that change, we've got to roll with them, right? We've got to do that in good faith and try to help them out as much as we possibly can. And at least for my part, that is what I fully intend to do. And this, in terms of a test, our team is far larger than it was, right? There's now 5 of us full-time on the YouTube team between our 2 channels. So that means we'll be able to put a lot more time into doing a lot more testing and more targeted stuff, which hopefully should, just help the whole lot of us actually engage with Blizzard in a way that is constructive and actually leads to a good outcome, which absolutely is what we all want. Okay, so with that said on their general plan, let's talk about some of the things that Ian teased in the post that he made. Okay, changes to all 12 classes are going to be there whenever people log into that closed alpha test. Now, what's interesting, right, is I had just assumed that the unpruning would mean, we're getting some abilities back. It seems like there's a few cases where they've went a little bit further, because what he says is that the changes we'll notice will involve our spell books, changes to our talent rows, but then he says resources, right? Now, changes to resources, that is pretty major, right? Because so many of our classes are right now builder spenders. So a lot of what I'm thinking here is, right, are they actually making more fundamental changes to the classes in World of Warcraft? Right now, I don't know, and it would be irresponsible to hype that up as being, a big class revamp or anything like that. But there could be some cases where some resource mechanics could be changed. Those resource mechanics, well, they are the core of how many classes play, and if so, that may mean that some of the problem specs right now might actually be seeing some changes. Maybe that, or they might be adding some new resource mechanics. That's certainly something that I indicated I would enjoy to see in some situations in my classes video. So that actually, to me, all sounds pretty good. Now, there's another thing that he said, which again, I think was very knowing. He said that unlike in past alphas and betas, what they want to hear from players is not what abilities are gone that I miss. Instead, they kind of want to know, do players think they've went too far in the unpruning? Now, that would actually indicate that they are giving us a lot of abilities back and maybe are just putting a lot more into our classes. And again, if you think to what I said in my class video a few days ago, while it sounds like that could be going a little bit more than just bringing 1 or 2 fan favorite things back into the odd class. Seems like it could be a lot more indeed. And if that is the case, could we have some more complex mechanics in a few of our classes? Will we have more situational options? It's hard to say. It's impossible to say indeed right now. But in terms of philosophy, yeah, it seems like that's going in the right direction. So yes, that's something that I'm pretty excited about. Then moving on, we've also got a nice little thing for quests. So they're going to be making a distinction between major and minor quests in their UI. I think that's really nice, actually. It means when you're going through just general zones, you'll always have this feeling if you're going through the main campaign, if that's what you so wish. I know that's something that's actually worked quite well for a lot of other MMOs, so there's that. That's pretty good. Another pretty good thing, well, maybe pretty good, is they're doing a 3D quest objective locator thing. Basically, right, from what he said, it sounds like it's TomTom, like they're just putting that in the game. That's something many people use anyway, so I suppose, yes, it being in the game's UI does make sense. There's a little bit of me that worries about holding the player's hand too much, and I think that one of the pros of vanilla is you've got to read the quest text and kind of work it out for yourself. But if I think about how the game is realistically played, yeah, some 3D indicator probably does make sense. But another nice thing that ties into that is players can now actually set a personal waypoint on the game map, and they can actually share waypoints in chat with other players. Now again, that is basically like TomTom or similar add-ons, but for a lot of people that will be a really nice quality of life change. So yeah, pretty good, and I think that will mesh well with how the game is realistically played by people. Now, moving on. There's something that has pissed me off royally since the start of BFA. It is something I've consistently talked about, less because it impacted me personally, and more because on a philosophical design level, it basically enraged me. And that's PvP vendors, right? It's, you know, it's no longer your, well, it's going to be no longer that you're going to the state and sort of begging for your weekly ration of a bit of PvP gear in the set order that they so wish. No. Conquest is a spendable resource. Vendors are back. You can purchase PvP gear from the PvP vendor with your Conquest points in Oribos. Sad it took us so long to get there, but that's good. And for me, it's the fact that they've went from their sort of silly, we know best, trust us, we know what your path should be. They've went from that position, which is what they took, and then defended in BFA, and they've actually went towards, wait, no, maybe the players actually do want some agency. And, you know, later in the post, Ian does say that everything for them is following the core of what they said at BlizzCon, which is just more player agency, more player choice. So that is really good. Now, the other thing here is that your Conquest points can also upgrade that gear a little bit like Mana Pearls. So there could be some pros and cons there depending on the other elements of itemization. So hopefully you're not trying to roll a good drop from the PvP vendor that you can then upgrade. But I mean, it would be really silly if that was the case, so I doubt that'll happen. But overall, on the topic of PvP gear, good news. I can't believe I've just said that. Good news. Like, this entire post has been good news. And it's the sort of thing where, you know, if Blizzard say, hey, we're going to do all these things, including having, you know, proper iteration and feedback in alpha and beta, if they say they're going to do those things now and then don't do them, they'll look very silly and they'll be in a good bit of trouble with their players, right? If they don't follow through. So the fact that they're drawing these lines in the sand and actually clearly communicating their intent, that is really, really good to hear. And that just makes me so happy. I guess it's the sort of thing where if this is what they're saying now, then internally they've probably thought this for a decent period of time. So there's that bit of me that always does feel just a little bit sad that in the interviews at BlizzCon or whatever, that the devs don't say that. And it's like, yeah, that technically is not being 100% truthful, but at the same time, in the industry, it's just called media training, and I think anyone who's ever worked at a corporate job knows the realities of what media training is like. So that's, I think, just the manifestation of that. But what matters here is what they are saying, the lines in the sand that they are drawing. They are really, really good, okay? So take it from me as somebody who has been, I think, one of the more critical voices at Blizzard throughout the duration of Battle for Azeroth. I mean, I have said, right, and I've said some pretty hardcore things. Like, I've said, it's not that your execution is bad, it's that your ideas are bad and the ideas are the easy bit. Like, I've literally said that, right? So take it from me as I think one of the harsher critics of Blizzard throughout this expansion, that these things do actually sound good. And I know that a lot of people are just default anti-Blizz. And I mean, I get that, and there's a lot of times where I see what they do and I'm just like, oh my god, really? So that's like where I'm coming from here, and what I'm saying to you in this video is that based on what they've said here and what they seem to have committed to, I am now feeling good about what the quality of this test will actually be. And I suppose it's also the case that, like, the alpha's been bouncing around their sort of private, I don't mean private servers in that way, but, you know, the dev-only ones. It's been floating around there for quite some time, so I've got to wonder if they have been doing a bit more iteration and a bit more prep work to actually make this be a good quality test. Yeah, so, I mean, look, you guys know that whenever Blizzard is doing things I disagree with, I say that. Right? Like, I was literally being paid to make a starter player guide on the official World of Warcraft YouTube channel. And while that series was going up, I was still being completely honest about my criticisms of the game. And of course, that was in the start of BFA. So there's a lot of criticisms going on there. So I'd like to think that, you know, I've got a little bit of credibility here as somebody who is critical to Blizzard and is now saying, well, okay, they are making a lot of good noises here and they seem to be moving in a good direction. And yeah, that does actually make me be decently excited about things. I'll be fully honest there. I mean, hey, I enjoyed the horrific visions of 8.3, so when I hear the Torghast testing is going to be there later on in, in this month, yeah, that does actually get me decently excited. Of course, I don't know if I'm going to get in, right? It could be that I, in a few instances, went a little bit too far and they don't feel like I'm the kind of person they want to work with. That could happen. It also could be the case that I will get in, and I will be able to make content for you. What I will say is that, and this is in fairness to Blizzard, they've never discriminated against me based on the things that I've said in the past, okay? They've never been a dick like that. Now, there are some companies like the Creative Assembly, right, who do the Total War games. There's people who've been critical about Total War and then have just been blacklisted, okay? Blizzard had never done that to me. After some of my most strident and pretty pointed criticisms of them, they have invited me to events, right? Like, you know, those sort of NDA'd campus ones. So, yeah, you know, right now I'm feeling like we're going to go in with good faith. We're going to try to help them out as much as we possibly can. Look, in this case, they want to sell a game to us that we're going to enjoy. We want to enjoy that game. Our incentives are aligned, so now is the time to just do as darn good a test as we possibly can. Now, if we do actually get into that alpha test, I mean, if I get into that alpha test, then expect my impressions of the Zone of Bastion, expect some coverage of the class changes, and also they're going to be giving us the Alliance new player experience, so expect content on that. There you go. It's an exciting time. I am fired up and absolutely ready to go throughout all of this. If you'd like to support what we're doing and our mission, then I would say just, you know, be engaged with the feedback, right? There's going to be times whenever Blizzard are asking for targeted feedback, we will be asking you for targeted feedback in order to help them out. So that will be happening. And if you want to help us a bit more, then hey, you can hit up the Patreon. There's a lot of cool stuff going on there. I think you've seen the big packs of loot that we're doing. They're pretty sweet. You get pins and stuff. So if you want to help us out in a bit more of a way, then that's a great way to do so. And a massive thank you to everyone whose names you're about to see in the credits. Anyway, with that, thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know how are you feeling going into things. And with that, I'll see you next time.